Hello and Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I'm Kashif Kamran, ACCA expert tutor for AAA. Gaining professional skill marks in AAA. Now, it's been long since professional skill marks have been introduced in the AAA exam paper, but there still exists an expectation gap between the students and the marker. I've seen so many students having their own definition of professional skill marks and how to gain them or how to demonstrate them in the AAA paper. And there seems to be a misunderstanding and ambiguity. Now, the purpose of this session is to bring clarity, is to bring guidance, is to give you some examples of how you can excel on gaining professional skill marks in AAA. And this session is being recorded at a time when the AAA September 25 exams are just 48 hours away. So, an ideal session for September 25 students, and then a good enough session for all students appearing in December 25 exams and onwards. Let's open up our discussion on gaining professional skill marks. Now, you're all very familiar with the structure of the 20 professional skill marks we have in AAA. There are 4 professional skills, right, which you have to demonstrate in the AAA paper for the 20 marks. The first one is the communication skill, and that is an isolated skill because that's only confined in the question number 1 for 4 marks. So that's only confined in section A. You will not find this communication skill across the paper. So out of the 20 marks, 4 marks are confined to communication skill. And you know, these marks are in terms of the briefing note, that is, you're structuring the answer in the question number 1, and we'll speak more of that. Then analysis and evaluation, commercial acumen, and skepticism and judgment. These 3 skills are in section A of the paper as well as in section B of the paper. So 4 marks gone out of the 20. You're left with 16 marks. So in these 16 marks, we have 3 skills. Now, definitely in question number 1, we have 10 marks for professional skill, of which 4 has gone on communication. So the remaining 6 marks in question number 1 will be for analysis and evaluation, commercial acumen, and skepticism and judgment. And then in each of the question 2 and question 3, we have 5 marks for analysis and evaluation, commercial acumen, and skepticism and judgment. So you can understand that these 3 skills are extremely important because they're taking a bigger chunk in your pie chart for 20 professional skill marks you have in the AAA paper. They're taking 16 out of 20. And communication skill is just one isolated one, and we'll see how to maximize those 4 communication skill marks. I've highlighted the 2 skills, analysis and evaluation, and skepticism and judgment. Now, to me, these are the 2 most important skills which a student should be well versed with, and a student should be demonstrating it throughout the paper. And as a AAA student, you should have an ability of portraying or demonstrating or illustrating these 2 particular skills highlighted in yellow throughout your paper. How would you do that? How easy is that? I will be giving you examples of that. But if you're not demonstrating these 2 particular skills, you are a weaker student. You don't have that ability that you are a manager in the AAA paper. Now, practice of the past papers, going into the past papers, solving the past papers, do create that ability. And particularly if you're getting your papers checked from any expert tutor, the feedback would be helping you. But yes, the exemplary process I will be doing shortly would help you further strengthen the 2 particular skills highlighted in yellow. Let's open up our discussion first on an isolated 4 marks we have on communication skills confined to question number 1, section A. Let's see how to maximize that. Communication skill marks 4 out of 20 in the question 1 of the AAA paper. Let's see what to do. There are 4 marks specifically allocated for communication skills in the question number 1. And you know the meaning of the communication, it means to communicate something in a clarified manner. If I'm reading your answer, and if I'm checking your answer as a marker, as a tutor, I can understand what you're trying to say. I can see a well presented answer. I can see a well structured answer because the purpose of the communication is to ensure that your message has been read well or understood well by the marker checking your paper. Let's see what you can do for that. You need to simply lay your answer in a briefing note format in the question number one. You're all well versed with that, right? You open up the partner email and the partner said that I would like to prepare a briefing note, and then he tells you A, B, C, D. So briefing note format. Now, when you start the briefing note, the very first thing you do in the word processor is that you put a heading, briefing note. Just like you're writing a report, you say report in an SPL exam. So you say briefing note. Under the briefing note, you say to, from, date, subject, or to, from, subject, date. You just need to see the way the email of the partner has been structured. So you just need to follow the order of the partner email, to, from, date, subject, or to, from, subject, date, whatever that order will go in. Then introduction. You need to write an introduction of a briefing note. And you know, the introduction is basically the purpose. Why are you writing this briefing note? Now, there are A, B, C, D requirements in the question number one mostly. So you will simply be saying the purpose of writing this briefing note is to evaluate the planning matters for the first year audit and the risk of material misstatement, full stop. Furthermore, we need to recommend procedures on impairment, and we need to evaluate ethical and professional issues, full stop. That's just two sentences. So in two sentences, you are summing up A, B, C, D, that this is what I have to do. 1, 2, 3, 4. You're not dragging it. You're not exaggerating on it because you have a time barrier. You know, time is very important in the triple exam. So introduction. So as a heading. Then under the introduction, you will follow the flow as per the partner email. Logical flow of the answer A, B, C, D. So for example, in the mock exam for September 25, in A, we had the planning matters for the first year audit. That becomes A. B, risk of material misstatement. C, procedures on impairment. And D, ethical and professional issues. So A, B, C, D under the introductions. Adherence to the instruction of the partners. Definitely, the partner will be telling you a lot of instructions in the email. The first one is the determination of the materiality. The partner will tell you that I want you to determine the materiality on the profit before income taxes. And here, you can't calculate materiality on revenue or total assets. You have to calculate it on profit before income tax because the partner is saying, I want this to be used. So adhere to the instruction. Number two, a lot of time the partner tells you not to do something. Even in the mock exam for September 25, in the question number 1A, you need to write the planning methods for the first year audit. And there was a note number that you should not consider the client acceptance methods. You should not consider the client acceptance matter because the client has already been accepted. Despite that fact, I've seen so many students writing the mock answer with client integrity, with competence, with ethical issues. Why? The note is saying that you've already accepted the client. When you've already accepted the client, why are you worried with client integrity? Why are you worried with competence? Why are you worried with ethical issues? That means you've accepted the client. So you must have seen this at the time of acceptance. You just need to write the planning matters for the first year audit, like opening balances, like knowledge of business, like correspondence with the previous auditor, etc. So adherence to the instruction. At times in the risk of material misstatement, there is a note number which says you need not to write a procedure, you need not to write a risk on impairment, or you need not to write a risk on inventory. So the note number is important, but mistakenly, when you're writing the risk of material misstatement, you write a risk on impairment or inventory. When the partner is saying you should not write a risk on it, you're losing your communication skill mark immediately, one of them, because you're not adhering to the instructions. So adherence to the instruction is very important when you're structuring and writing the briefing note. Use of headings to split requirements A, B, C, D. A, planning matters, heading. B, risk of materials misstatement, heading. C, procedures. D, ethical and professional issues. So these are four main headings A, B, C, D, subheadings under each requirement. Now, suppose you're writing planning matters. That's the main heading. Now, under the planning matters, you have 5 marks. So you will give 5 subheadings. Number one, correspondence with the previous auditor. One heading, right under it. Next heading, opening balances, right under it. Third heading, understanding of the laws and regulations. Fourth heading, analytical procedures. Give the subheadings. Those subheadings are important. You're writing the risk of material misstatement. The first subheading will be materiality, and you determine the materiality. Then you're writing the subheadings for each risk, like joint venture, like acquisition, like government grant, like first year audit. So you give those headings. Then a conclusion as a heading for risk of material misstatement, where you prioritize which of the two risks above are important and why. So headings and subheadings makes the life of the marker easier. Even when I was checking the mock, the students' answers with headings and subheadings was so easier to understand and read what they are trying to tell. So when you say communication skills, the presentation, the breakup of the answer, the split of the answer is very important. Sometimes the student don't even give a break in writing the first para and the second para. They accumulate them. I'll show you some examples, and you will judge yourself which is good and which is bad. Next, placing the materiality para at the right place in the briefing note. Sometimes the student place the materiality para right after the heading of introduction. Why? You know, the materiality has a connection with the requirement of either risk of material misstatement, or materiality has a connection with the requirement of audit risk. So suppose in the A part or in the B part, you have to do audit risk or risk of material misstatement, whichever part. So you put A or B, and then you say audit risk or risk of material misstatement. Under that heading of risk of material misstatement or audit risk, you go down and you write the first subheading, materiality. And then you determine the materiality on the request of the partner. So placement, sometimes you place it at the introduction stage, sometimes you place it elsewhere. It has to be placed under the heading of audit risk or risk of material misstatement. So that is important. Next, placing the conclusion on prioritization of the significant ROM or the significant audit risk at the right place. Now, suppose in the B requirement, you have significant ROM or you have significant audit risk. Now you put the heading audit risk or ROM, then you put the heading materiality, you determine the materiality. Then you start writing the risk like joint venture, acquisition, first year audit, government grant, impairment. You're writing the risk uh, according to the marks. And you're writing the risk as they flow. So you open up the exhibit 2 because exhibit 1 is the partner email. You open up the exhibit 2 and you found some risk about the very first risk you found is like investment, and that was joint venture. Then you go to the second risk, you found acquisition. Then you found the third risk, government grant. Then you go to the next exhibit, you found the next risk, impairment. Then you found a risk about some penalties coming from an environmental agency. Whichever order the risk is coming to you, you're writing the risk under materiality 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Suppose the fifth risk is your final risk, and that finishes your marks you have to take. Then after the fifth risk, you put a heading, you put a subheading, conclusion, or you can even put a subheading, prioritization, conclusion or prioritization, whichever heading you like to follow. You give that heading after the fifth risk. Now you've written 5 risks above in the order in which you found them in the case study. Now you give a conclusion or a prioritization, and what you need to tell, which two, only two, right? Which two of the above risk are to be prioritized and why, or which two of the above risks are significant and to be prioritized and why. So you will tell, okay, of the 5 risks I wrote above, the government grant or the impairment are the significant risk and should be prioritized by the audit firm, and you give the reason. And you tell that government grant is a significant risk because it has the highest quantitative, highest quantification, highest value, highest amount. And the impairment is the second most important risk because it includes management estimates and a risk of management bias in determining the fair value and the value in use. Full stop. So for government grant, you give one reason, amount. And for impairment, you give a reason that it includes estimates, management bias in determining the value in use and the fair value. Full stop. Just like two sentences. So you told the partner that these two are important risks and we should prioritize on them. Government grant should be prioritized. Why? Because of its amount. Impairment should be prioritized because of the management estimates. And estimates are risky. So a lot of time the student says we should prioritize the government grant and impairment and full stop. They don't even write about why. Number two, at times they only just focus on quantifications. Please broaden up your knowledge. Prioritization is not just the quantifications. That's good in exam. I'm not denying it. But you need to judge that there could be other aspects of prioritization, like management bias, like estimates, like something being done for the first time, like acquisition of a acquisition. And that acquisition was written in the case that this is the first time the group is acquiring a company. So anything being done for the first time itself is important. So how you give importance, there could be multiple grounds, but I hope you're getting my example here. So putting a paragraph of conclusion or putting a paragraph for prioritization right after where you end the audit risk or risk of material misstatement is important, and that's part of your communication skill marks, putting a conclusion or putting a prioritization para. So that is it, right? Now, this is what you need to adhere with your upcoming exams. And this is what you need to use as a checklist. Let me show you an example. Now, I was checking some student mocks for September, and I got some good examples of that. Okay, I hope you can see one in front of your screen now, where I have put some ticks. You can see some red ticks, and I have written over here, the red ticks on the left and on the right is equal to communication skill marks. Now see how the student's starting. Briefing note heading, tick. To, tick. From, tick. Subject, tick. Date, tick. Introduction, tick. Adhering, see, he's going wonderful. Introduction, tick. Then look at the first one. A, logical flow. A, heading, matter specific to planning the initial audit. So the student is giving the heading, matter specific to planning the first year audit, heading. Then look at the subheadings. Entity and the environment, subheading. Those charges, governance, subheading. Previous auditor, subheading. Internal control, subheading. I've given a tick because it's headings and subheadings. It's the break of your answer, making the life of the marker easier. Now, when the marker is checking your paper, he will see A and he will immediately see the headings, and he can understand what you're trying to write about planning matters for the first year audit. Then you go down. B, heading, significant risk of material misstatement. And he put the materiality paragraph at the right place. Tick. Right placement. We're not seeing what he or she has written in the materiality paragraph. We're just looking at the structure. Then under materiality, you put the first heading, government grant, risk number 1. Then you put the next heading, acquisition of Zenith Company, tick. Joint venture, Aurora, tick. Claim from EcoGuard, tick. And impairment of the damaged coastal leisure club, tick. So wonderful breakup of the answer. Risk of management by tick. And finally, can you see this heading coming here? Conclusion. So after he or she has written the number of risks for number of marks, heading of conclusion. This could be even prioritization. So you can use any headings. And then it has been justified over here that which two of the risk above are important and why. We'll speak of that later once we go to the other skills. But this is the perfect structure going in. Then C requirement, principal audit procedures. Again, a heading coming in. I ticked. Then look at the procedures. Procedures are not written with headings, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's a perfect way. A lot of time you don't give numbers to procedure. You should give numbers to procedure because these are certain things you can do in a computer-based exam, numberings or bullets. Numberings are better, so the marker can see 6 procedures, 6 marks. Then look at the D requirement, ethical and professional issues. And under that, look at the subheadings. Financial advice, first ethical issue. Then the second issue, audit of imperial company, second ethical issue. Look at the paragraphs he or she is writing under financial advice, two different paragraphs, not merging them. Can you see a gap between the paragraphs? Look at the gap, self-review threat. Right after that, a gap, and then he's starting Baxter and company should firstly assess. Look at the gap. So at least the marker checking the paper can see, okay, this is 1 mark, this is 1 mark. Split. Audit of imperial company. Look at the gaps. Look at the paragraphs. Can you see 4 discrete paragraphs? So when I was checking the mock, it was so easy to check the student mock because every para was giving 1 mark. Then next, attending the board meeting. Look at the 3 discrete paragraphs coming in. Then you go down, temporary CFO. You can see 2 discrete marks coming in. So you can easily count there were 10 marks of ethics, 10 marks was there for ethical and professional issue. So easily I can say, okay, two for temporary CFO, 3 for attending the board meetings, that's 5, 5 and 4 under audit of imperial, 9, 9, and I have 2 under financial advice, 11. I can easily see 11 marks because every para means a unique discussion. And that's where the briefing note ends, where you end the temporary CFO. Now, look at this. So we had 2 from date subject. We had an introduction. We had requirement A, requirement B, requirement C, requirement D. We had the headings. For A requirement, we had the breakup of the headings. For the B requirement, we had the breakup of the heading, including materiality and conclusion. Then for the C requirement, we were writing procedures. We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 numberings. For the D requirement, we had ethical issues. So we split the ethical issues under different headings coming from the case study and then splitting the paragraph. You cannot get as clearly structured answer than this. And when I was checking this mock exam, I was so happy to read through the answer because everything was so well structured. You can see the different paragraphs being used in. So this is communication skill marks, making the life of the marker easier. He or she checking your paper can see the split, the breaks, can understand the segregation. Okay, this is A, this is B, this is C, this is D, and the split. This is where you maximize your 4 professional marks. I hope you're all clear on this. And one last thing where you need to maximize your professional skill marks around communication is definitely the adherence to the instructions given. Now you can see this mock exam in front of you. You open up the partner email and the partner email tells you instructions. The instruction number 1 is that I have decided to use the profit before income tax in determining the materiality. So that is the first instruction you have to adhere to. Number 2 instruction the partner is saying, note, you do not need to discuss matters relating to whether it was appropriate for Baxter to accept the group as a client, as client acceptance is confirmed. The partner is saying the client is already confirmed. I have taken on the client as a partner. You cannot challenge me. So you are not writing anything about client acceptance. You are not required to do this. Now, this is adherence. If any student do it mistakenly, you are losing your communication skill marks, right? So please follow these note numbers. These note numbers are extremely important because these are adherent to the partner instructions. I hope you will be maximizing your communication skill marks 4 out of 4 with this illustration. Okay, now let's move on to the 16 remaining marks. We've done 4. We have done communication skill marks. We know that's one isolated skill we have in question number 1. Now we have been left with 16 out of 20 marks, which is on analysis and evaluation, skepticism and judgment, and commercial acumen, which is in question 1, then 2, and then 3. And you know how much they are: 5 each in question 2 and 3, and 6 in question number 1. Okay, that brings us to the rest of the skills. Let's take an example of how these skills work throughout the paper, particularly analysis and evaluation, skepticism and judgment, where I believe the student should be stronger at. And I'll show you some examples from good mock to give you more realistic correlation of how marks build up. Okay, let's go first with skepticism and judgment. You need to be skeptical as an auditor. That's the mindset of the auditor. You need to have negative mind for the paper as an auditor. You need to challenge management. You need not to believe on management. Whatever management is telling you, you need to deal it skeptically with a negative mind. You need to be alert. You cannot just say, okay, whatever the management is telling me is right or wrong. Just an example. In the mock exam, we had a situation where management had recognized an impairment loss of, I think, $1.2 million. Now, recognizing an impairment loss is a right accounting treatment, and that's wonderful. And always, as an auditor, we say the management should review indicators of impairment, and management should recognize impairment loss if there is any indicator for impairment. Now, they have done the best things. Now, whenever the management has done even the right accounting treatments, there is something wrong within it. Now, when you read the case, even though the management has recognized the impairment loss, there are two components of the recoverable amount, right? Fair value less the cost to sell, and number two, the value in use. And both were given in the case. And when you read the case, it said that the value in use was wrongly calculated because the management has not taken the present condition of the club which got damaged. They have not taken the present condition of the club to determine the value in use. They have considered the repairing of the club and then considered the value in use, which was wrong, because value in use is to be taken in context, taking the present condition of the club after the damage and then determining the value in use, which was wrong. So definitely you need to be skeptical that management, even though is recognizing impairment loss, that impairment loss is understated because the value in use as a component of a recoverable amount is wrongly estimated. And then fair values are estimated. Value in use is estimated. So estimates make you skeptical in exam. Even though the management has recognized the loss, estimates can be wrong. And estimates means the management could have been biased in using estimates to lower the impairment loss. So you need to be skeptical, right? Even though the management has done the right accounting treatment. So let's take some examples. Number one, material and pervasive. Now, this is a judgment you take across the paper. Judgment. In the question number one, it's only material or immaterial. In question number one, you're doing an answer on risk of material misstatement or on audit risk. You determine the materiality. You're taking a judgment. And then you say the government grant is material as it exceeds materiality level. Or investment in Aurora in the mock exam is material because it exceeds the materiality level, for example. So you're taking your judgments that this is material because it exceeds the materiality level. So judgments about materiality. You take the same on the reporting question number 2 or 3 in the section B, because in the reporting question, you're not only judging is it material, but you're also judging it as material and pervasive, because that will change the opinion from qualified to adverse or from qualified to disclaimer of opinion, just like we had in the mock exam. In the mock exam, there was a development cost and the management was not giving us evidence on the development cost. And that development cost was so significant that when you compare that development cost with the profit of the company, it was, I think, 141% of the profit. And that was material and pervasive, because if the development cost is to be expensed out, the profit will turn to losses. And that is pervasive. Your judgment, your basis of judgment, when you're judging is a matter material, and pervasive, or even in a reporting question, the matter is immaterial, because that immaterial will lead to a unqualified opinion. Just like in the mock exam, we had uh, emphasis of a meta paragraph given in a critical appraisal of the report in question number 2. And the students rightly picked out that the emphasis of a meta paragraph has been given for something immaterial. We know emphasis is only given for a material thing. The student found the percentage, and they found the percentage that it's immaterial to the profit, it's immaterial to the total asset. So how can we give an emphasis? So this is judgment, right? Secondly, right impact on the audit report. You have to give the right impact on the report. Judgment, qualified opinion, adverse opinion, disclaimer of opinion. Will emphasis of a meta paragraph come or not? You have to take careful decisions in a reporting question. You have to take careful judgment in a reporting question, and you need to have your basis right. So right impact on the report, just like a lot of students failed to pick up in the question number 2A of the mock exam for September 25, that it was a disclaimer of opinion. They thought it's a qualified opinion. Or even in the worst case scenario, some of the students went for adverse opinion, knowing the fact it's a scope limitation. In a scope limitation, how can you give an adverse? So in a scope limitation, either it's a qualified opinion or disclaimer. So be logical. Whether the opinion or the para given in the critical appraisal is right or wrong. When you're doing a critical appraisal of the report, judging whether the opinion or the para given is right or wrong in the extracts of the report. Just like in the mock exam for September 25, the emphasis of a meta paragraph was given in the extract of the report, but was wrong. You need to criticize it. You need to be critical that the conditions of emphasis are not met. So we can't give emphasis, even though that was given in the extract of the report. Or the opinion. You need to judge the opinion. You need to be critical of the opinion. So judgment around it. Accounting treatment, what is wrong or may be wrong. Now, if the management has recognized an impairment loss, which seems to be the right treatment, but still being skeptical, judging what is wrong. Is the impairment loss understated despite being recorded? Has the management estimated the fair value or the value in use wrongly? So even though the treatment is right, they have recognized the loss. But you have to find what is wrong even in that using your skeptical mindset. So, accounting treatments are given to you in across the paper, and you need to judge what is wrong in the accounting treatment adopted by the management. Is there something wrong with the recognition or classification or presentation or a disclosure not given? You need to be critical of that in terms of your judgment. And you need to link wrong accounting treatments with management bias, skepticism. You need to be skeptical. Why is the management doing a wrong accounting treatment? Why is the management recognizing an impairment loss but of less amount? Because they want to fabricate the profit. They want to overstate the profit. They have any intention to do so. They are going for any proposed listing in a couple of years. They have any pressure from outside investors to do so. Why? Why? There has to be a management bias linking with skepticism. Management bias, the next point itself. Alert of the possible situations in the case study, demonstrating fabrication, client integrity issues, etc. Like any planned listing. Planned listings can make things can be used as a technique by management to manipulate or fabricate the financial statements. Or any loan application can be used by management to fabricate the financial statements for a successful loan application. So there could be any possible indicators of management fabricating the financial statements. You need to be alert of that. Or any client integrity issues, which increases the risk of management bias in the financial statements being prepared. Greenwashing risk and sustainability assurance. In question number 3 of the mock exam for September 25, management was preparing the sustainability report for the first time on the request of some investors and environmental groups. Greenwashing, is a terminology used in IAASA 500. And greenwashing risk is just like a window dressing risk you have in the financial statement, that you can manipulate your You can manipulate your results for environment. You can show better recycling percentages. You can show better CO2 emission percentage over the last year. You can fabricate your environmental reportings, just like you do the financial statement reporting and the fabrication of that. So greenwashing risk and sustainability assurance is also something where you need to be skeptical and demonstrate that. What is omitted from prospective financial information? A question comes on prospective financial information. They ask you, evaluate the assumptions. Evaluate the assumptions used in preparing the cash flow forecast and comment on the completeness of the cash flow forecast. So you evaluate the assumptions. You need to be skeptical. You need to keep in mind that whenever the management is making a PFI, they have an intent to understate and overstate. For example, a cash flow forecast, they will be understating the outflows and they will be overstating the inflows. You have to keep that in mind to demonstrate your challenging ability, to demonstrate your skeptical ability and completeness of the cash flow. What has management omitted? Have they omitted tax payments? Have they omitted any interest payments? You will find some obvious omissions from cash outflows because management wants to understate the cash outflows. So they might not show the tax payments, they might not show the interest payments, despite the fact you've taken a loan and you've shown the loan in the cash inflows, but you're not showing interest payments in the cash outflows. So be skeptical, right? Exercise your judgments where possible, and I'll be showing you some illustrations of that shortly. Just want to show you one example here from the student mock we were looking at. I hope you can see that on your screen. Look at this. When the student was setting up the materiality as part of the briefing note on the request of the partner that the materiality is to be based on profit before income tax, there are 3 technical marks for determining the materiality, but you're also getting professional skill marks in materiality. See, the student determined the materiality on the profit before income tax, and the student told that on the lower side it will be 0.62 million, and on the higher side it's 12.4 million, 1.24 million, sorry. Then in the next paragraph, you have to take a judgment. Which materiality level will you use, 0.62 or 1.24 or something in the middle of them? The student said, as this is a new client, so we have to use the lower threshold of 5%, which is 0.62 million. Has the student exercised a judgment? He's getting the 3 technical marks, but he's also getting 1 extra mark for exercising a sound judgment that it is a new client. And for that reason, we have to keep the materiality level at the lower threshold of 0.62 million. You go down and you see a good example here. See this. The student was writing about the government grant and the accounting treatment of the government grant, and has the management recognized the grant income rightly or not rightly? Because in this scenario, the grant income was recognized early, despite the fact you've not even spent a single penny from the grant given to you, but you've recognized the grant as an income. Now, the student saw that the grant amount was 12.4 million, which you have recognized, and that is equally the amount of the profit before income tax. Look at the profit before income tax above here. It is 12.4 million here. So management has recorded the full grant income at 12.4 million, and that's an identical amount to the profit before income tax, interestingly. So the student was very skeptical that the management has recorded the grant income as a full. Look at the last paragraph here. The student mentioned that if the grant income was recorded early, and it should not have been recorded, rather than it should have been shown in the deferred income, then the profit before income tax would have been zero, or rather loss. I wrote here good demonstration of skepticism because I didn't found this in many answers. Student was alert. He clicked 12.4 million grant, 12.4 million profit. What if the grant income was recorded wrongly? Then 12.4 million will become zero. And that last paragraph gives the student the edge of an extra professional skill mark. Then you go down and you found here this. Okay, we'll do this in the analysis and evaluation. That's a more important example for there. Another good demonstration of skepticism. The student wrote a paragraph about risk of management bias, and in this he mentioned a lot of factors. And one of the factor in risk of management bias, he mentioned that the management perhaps is fabricating the profit. They're showing profit at $12.4 million by incorporating the government grant. So management is using the government grant as a technique to fabricate the financial statement. And he wrote other factors of management bias as well. But he gave a whole paragraph of management bias where the student was skeptical to link the factors in the case to management bias. And apart from getting 2 technical marks on this particular ROM, I wrote here good demonstration of skepticism +1. And then look at the judgment. Conclusion. Which two of the above risks are important? Prioritized. The student wrote, as per the materiality, the above risk has been prioritized according to their quantitative element. So the student is saying that I have prioritized the risk on their quantitative element from the highest to lowest. He's saying that the first most important quantitative risk is the $12.2 million government grant, and the second is the acquisition of Zenith. Judgment. You're exercising a judgment on the prioritization of the risk, +1 mark for judgment. So see, so many times you take judgments, you exercise judgments across the paper. Now that is a skill which I believe is like a fundamental skill in your 100 marks paper for AAA. So please ensure you follow this, you stick to this, and you make your mark scanning ability around professional skills in AAA brighter. Okay, let's take examples for analysis and evaluation. Making use of maximum info in the scenario. Analyze information. In the partner email, in question number 1, it says use exhibit 2 or 3, if I'm not wrong, or 2, 3, and 4, whatever. You know this comes in question number 1, that use all exhibits at times, or sometimes it says use exhibit 2, 3, and 4 and evaluate the risk of material misstatement. Now, any student who find the risk only from 2 and 3 and fail to find a risk from 4, for example, you're not getting analysis marks, because analysis means to fetch risk from the information, the broad information. If the examining team says use all exhibits and evaluate the risk of material misstatement, then at least minimum 1 risk should come from each exhibit. If a student says, okay, I'll just use 2 exhibits for all my risk, I'm not using the other exhibits, you're getting your technical marks, but you're not getting your professional skill marks on analysis. Where possible, calculations, identify trends, add up immensely. Where possible, do the calculations. Wherever you think I can use the calculator and I can find a percentage, I can find a ratio, I can find increase and decrease, I can do some calculations, and that can add value to my answer. Like even the calculations of materiality, but you can at times you find percentages like revenue is increasing by 21%, and you think that is increasing a lot, and you link that rise with some with a judgment or with a skepticism that this rise in revenue could be a management bias, or revenue could be overstated. So you automatically go back to skepticism and judgment. But the calculation of 21% rise in revenue because you had financial information given is an example of how you're bringing your analysis and evaluation skill in the paper. I'll be showing you examples. Well reasoned arguments for your points. For example, if writing ROM, it should have a clear risk. What is wrong or may be wrong, and the impact on the financial statement. So many times I see students writing ROM or audit risk without a clear risk. Now, for example, the impairment point or the government grant point we discussed in the session today. If you believe the government grant was recognized as an income upfront without even a single penny spent from the government grant, so that's a too early recognition of the government grant, right? So what is the risk? early recognition of the grant income. What's the risk? Early recognition. Or if you believe management has recorded the impairment loss, but the impairment loss amount is understated because impairment loss should have been more than 1.2. So management has recognized an impairment loss, but the recognition of the impairment loss was less than the estimates of the auditor. So recognition becomes the risk. And then the impact. Impact is always under an overstatement. So if the grant income has been recorded $12.4 million, what is understated and what is overstated? If the management has under recorded the impairment loss, what is understated, what is overstated? Be very particular. A lot of times the students are very habitual that it's just say financial statements are misstated. Financial statements are materially misstated. No, government grant is hitting something, is hitting something in the balance sheet and the P&L. What is understated, what is overstated? Particularly, impairment loss is hitting something in the balance sheet and the P&L. What is understated, what is overstated? Be very particular about that. Same goes with analysis of the ethical and professional issues. A lot of time the student says it's a self-review threat, but fail to justify why or fail to connect with the scenario that in the context of the scenario, why it is a self-review threat or why it is a familiarity threat. They just simply say it's a familiarity threat without even doing any arguments on it as to why. Critical appraisal of the report. If the opinion is right in the critical appraisal, suppose the opinion given in the critical appraisal is a disclaimer, for example, and you believe on the basis of your analysis that disclaimer is the right opinion given by the senior in the extracts of the report. So if you believe the opinion given is right, you will justify why it's right. Why it's right. So you will give some calculations of material and pervasive and justify that the disclaimer given by the senior is perfectly right. So you justify the opinion is right with your logics. Number two, if you believe that the opinion given by the senior in the extracts of the report is wrong, you have double responsibility now. First, you will justify why it's wrong, prove it. And then when you prove it's wrong, then you have to do something extra. Then you have to justify what should have been the right. So two steps. If you say it's wrong, first justify why wrong, and then what's right. If you say it's right, just simply justify that the one given by the senior is right and why. That is it. This is analysis and evaluation. Your ability to do calculations, your ability to find trends, your ability to read the whole case to build up your answer, your ability to give a clear risk and a clear impact, your ability to give a clear justification why it's a self-review threat, your ability to be critical of the opinion given in the critical appraisal. These are examples. There could be hundreds of examples of how analysis and evaluation comes in. Just let me show you an example of this. If you go back to the mock exam, uh, see, I've written over here one thing. You know, IFRS 18 has become part of the triple exams from September 25. So the student was very well versed with IFRS 18. We were talking about a joint venture, and you know, joint venture is basically an investment, and this investment is to be classified as a non-current asset in the balance sheet. But the any income or any profit or loss from investment in joint venture should now be recorded under the investing section of the profit or loss as per IFRS 18. So you have an operating category, you have a investing category, you have a financing category in the P&L now, and you need to ensure which thing goes in which category. So the student was very well alert, and in this paragraph I've highlighted in green, the student mentioned about the use of the equity method to recognize the investment in joint venture. But right over here, the student wrote that in the third line that the share of profit and loss in the investment in joint venture should be classified under the investing section of the P&L after the operating profit, in the statement of profit and loss. And he was very clear that after the operating profit becomes to the investing section, and the share of profit or loss should be in the investing section. Otherwise, you will have a wrong classification of the P&L as per IFRS 18. So he was thinking broadly apart from just the IS 28 or IFRS 11 around joint venture. So I wrote here good use of IFRS 18. That means analysis and evaluation plus one. So he was having a broad evaluation, not just of the joint venture, but how it should be treated now under IFRS 18. So see, this is how you make use of it as a broader analysis and evaluation. So you have to be very open in exam, because when you're writing up your technical answer, within the technical answer, you can fetch your professional skill marks just by doing something more logically. Let me show you another answer for the student. I hope you can see that on the screen. This student also mentioned IFRS 18 as an additional point to joint venture, but I just want to show you one thing which was important in one of the student answer I found. Uh, Probably it's here. See, in the management bias point, the student is writing, he's not just capturing the skepticism marks, he's also capturing analysis and evaluation, because in management bias, the student wrote uh, increase of 21.6% from the past year in terms of revenue. Then he used another percentage, 8.69%. Then he used another percentage, 9.5%. That means he did an effort to use a calculator and find these percentages. And he used these percentages to link them with an overstatement of revenue as part of the management bias. Now, see, he's getting the two technical marks for management bias as a risk of material misstatement, but he's getting an extra mark for analysis and evaluation. He's getting one extra mark for being skeptical that how this management bias is resulting in overstatement. So management bias is skepticism, but the 21.6% or 8.69% or 9.5% is also giving him the marks for analysis and evaluation. This is when you're writing the technical answer, something extra, something incremental, like you write judgments, like you write analysis, like you write evaluations, like you write skeptical mindset, is giving you incremental marks towards 20 and helping you pass in a better manner. Okay, just let's go back. Okay, there is one more thing to show you. Analysis and evaluation, right? That's what we're looking for. In the question number 2, we had the report. See, in the report, critical appraisal, the student made use of that the legal claim is immaterial as it is 1.6% of the profit before income tax. So he found that percentage. So that means he's taking a judgment that it's immaterial. He found the percentage 1.6, so it's going analysis and judgment going together. Then he used here 141% of the profit. He's demonstrating analysis and evaluation, and then he's taking a judgment that it's material and pervasive. So judgment, analysis, all going together. So a lot of students missed on these percentages in a critical appraisal question. uh, this student was one of the few who found this very very rightly. If I can show you one wrong way of doing it. See, I've written over here these percentages 1.6, the judgment of immaterial. I've seen written over here 1.6% plus 1 for judgment, immaterial, ruling out EUMP plus 1. The student is using a judgment that it's immaterial. The student is ruling out that emphasis should not come for immaterial things. So a couple of judgments he's taking, and he's building upon his professional skill marks along with uh, technical. Then the student used 141.9% of the profit, saying it's pervasive. He used a judgment. He gave a judgment on disclaimer of opinion that a disclaimer should come in. So calculation of materiality plus 1 for analysis. So 141.9% is giving him analysis marks. Judgment, disclaimer, +1. So see, that's how you build up your answers. You're not doing anything incremental for professional skill marks, right? You're writing a technical answer, 141.9%. It's a disclaimer of opinion. It's part of your technical answer. But these things visibly in your answer is giving you incremental marks, which are professional skill marks, because many students, even when writing the technical answer, missed on these basic things of writing a good answer in AAA. Okay. Lastly, down to commercial acumen. Now, these two skills we just discussed, skepticism, judgment, analysis, evaluation, go so broadly in the paper and so many times a used in. And I hope you will make a better use of them on the day of exam. Commercial acumen is the least used skill, but let's see how and where it's demonstrated. Commercial acumen, engagement, client acceptance decision. Practice management is a syllabus topic where you are asked a question, matters in accepting a client or matters in accepting an engagement to report on sustainability assurance, just like in the mock exam, question number 3A. How many times you get a question on that? That matters in deciding whether to accept an engagement or a client, and you have to evaluate the matters from the scenario, that what factors will I consider in accepting the engagement? And then you have to give a conclusion, because it says whether you should accept or whether you should accept. You have to give a conclusion. Now, definitely conclusion is part of your analysis and evaluation. But it's also part of commercial acumen, because you have to decide, am I accepting the client? If you accept the client, that is a prospect of a fee income. And that's commercial acumen. That's commercialism. That's a commercial opportunity. If you reject a client because there was some ethical issues, there was client integrity issue. So you give precedence to ethics over commercial, which is very good. You will get commercial acumen. So commercial acumen is to understand the reality. We know audit firms always give precedence to client integrity over money, or ethics over money. That's what you need to do in the paper. Right. So if you say there were some client integrity issues or there were some ethical issues, and for that reason we cannot accept the engagement or the client, that's commercial acumen. It's not just taking money as a commercial acumen. It's even when you reject the money because ethics was more important, or the client integrity as an issue was more important, and you rejected the client because you don't want to affect your reputation as an audit firm. So what you safeguarded? You safeguarded your long-term reputation. So long-term reputation is commercial acumen. And if you accept a client, because logically it should be accepted because there was nothing wrong. So that's bringing you the prospect of the fee income. That's commercial acumen. So when you take decisions on client acceptance or engagement acceptance, it's demonstrating your commercial acumen beside analysis, evaluation, or other skills like skepticism and judgment. A lot of skills goes together. Business risk, impact on business objective. Now, in a business risk question, when you're writing the impact on business objectives, like you say that this will affect the profitability of the company, or this will affect the sales of the company, or this will affect the market share of the company, or this will affect the relationship with the supplier or relationship with the customer, because there are so many business objectives, like profit, liquidity, market share, competitive advantage, etc. So a business risk is when you're writing a business risk, you need to write a very clear impact on the objectives of the business, that because of this risk, which business objective will be affected? Your reputation, your liquidity, your profitability, what? And you should not be repeating the same, because I've seen student writing 5 business risks, and in those 5 business risks, 3 of them or 4 of them will end with, it will affect the reputation of the company. It will affect the reputation of the company. It will affect the reputation of the company. That's not professionalism, right? That's not giving you any professional skill marks for business risk. Every business risk should have a unique impact. One of them can have profitability. One of them can have revenue. One of them can have losing competitive advantage. One of them can have liquidity. One of them can have reputation. So impact of the on the business objectives is there you're building the commercial acumen. Commercial acumen also means having a sound knowledge of the business, not just money, not just the commercial opportunities. Going concern issues, if you investigate any in the scenario and you believe that the company is facing going concern issues, or you comment on the going concerns anywhere in the three questions of the paper, or you comment on the company's ability to continue as a going concern, or you comment on some material uncertainties relating to going concern in a scenario, because I know students love going concern picking ability in the paper, which is very hypothetical. But if there is something logical and you believe this is impacting the company's going concern or impacting the company's foreseeable future, then in that case, you are also demonstrating the commercial acumen alongside analysis and evaluation or judgment on going concern. And you're also demonstrating commercial acumen. Because if the business is having an inability to operate, or the business is having material uncertainties for the foreseeable future, that's impacting the commercial acumen. That's impacting their reality, their existence as a business. Any issues impacting auditor liability or audit firm reputation. There is something in the scenario like you had failed to gather sufficient appropriate audit evidence. A question comes on evaluating the evidence gathered. Question comes on critical appraisal of the report, where something has been done wrong by the audit team. Quality management questions. Something done wrong by the audit seniors, by the audit junior, by the audit team, and you're criticizing your firm, you're criticizing your audit team. Now, in that case, we can comment on like auditor liability increasing, or we can comment on the audit firm reputation being deteriorated because of the issues you have created, unless and until you address them. So any impact coming in your answer and anything where you're writing about this will affect the auditor liability, or this will increase the auditor liability, or this will affect the audit firm reputation, somewhere in your 100 marks paper where you comment on such things, it's building up your marks around commercial acumen. Client integrity risk. Somewhere in the 100 marks paper, if you find something about client integrity as a major risk, and you think, just like the mock exam, September 25, question number 2, we had a management imposed scope limitation. Management imposed scope limitation is a client integrity issue. And a lot of students wrote rightly that because of the client management imposed scope limitation, it will affect the future of the auditor client relationship. We need to step down as an auditor. Now, stepping down as an auditor, withdrawing from an engagement, telling management that the limitation you have imposed will affect the relationship between you and me. This is all affecting the commercial acumen. So, when you take decisions about accepting a client, engagement, when you talk about the right impact of the business risk on the objective, when you talk somewhere about going concern in the paper, when you talk about any impact on the auditor repute or auditor liability, particularly in quality management questions, evaluating the evidence question, critical appraisal questions, or you talk about client integrity and how integrity affects your relationship with the client and stepping down as an auditor. These are all instances where you're building upon commercial acumen in the AAA paper. So I hope this broad scan with examples in front of your screen, where we've gone through the major elements as examples, would help you a long way in boosting your professional skill marks in AAA, particularly analysis and evaluation. Be very critical of that. So you're writing a technical answer, uh, communication marks, you know how easy they are. But then when you're writing up the answer, you're filling up the answer, you're writing the technical answer, just think about, have I done the right calculations? Have I commented on the materiality? Have I exercised judgments? Have I talked about management bias? Have I talked about the whys in ethics, whys in ROM? Look at these examples in front of your screen. Just go through them and see, okay, this is 75% or 80% of this I will do in my exam. And that's where you're fetching your professional skill marks. I've shown you examples from good mock answers, how student wrote extra para for fetching them. So it's all about your intelligence. It's all about how clever you are on the day of exam, that when you're writing the technical answer, you are also getting incremental professional skill marks. So I hope this discussion today would be beneficial, would go a long way for students appearing for September exams 25 and onwards in terms of boosting your prospects of passing with good marks in AAA. I wish you all the very best of luck, and I hope you succeed in AAA. The passing rates have become so good in AAA now. It's 40% globally, so that's another optimism. But you just need to mitigate your misconceptions around professional skill marks. Your tutor, Kashif Kamran, signing off.